Good morning, folks. Cumberland Outdoorsman here with you again on a rather cool but sunny mid-February day. Looks like I caught a break in the weather. Last week we had torrential downpours nearly all week, and today it cleared up nicely. And it's slightly breezy, but not too bad. So what I can do today, and what I've got for you today, is some 22 long rifle hollow point ammunition, and I'm going to be testing it on a test medium that I haven't found on YouTube or anywhere else, but that I traditionally have used because it's so readily available, and that you can use yourself because you can find it just about anywhere. And that's wet newspaper, newsprint. That's right. Instead of using ballistic gel, which is quite a process to set up actually, and I've got several different brands of 22 ammunition that I'd like to test today, just a small lineup, and I'll keep it rather brief for the purposes of this video. But one that I really would like to test, and I've always been curious about, is some ammunition that Winchester started producing back in the 1970s. I think it was the late 70s, to be honest with you. And that was their Winchester Dynapoint. Now, I bought this box here just the other day at Academy Sports, and it was somewhere around $20 for 500 rounds, which is pretty much considered a bulk pack, okay? But they have a small dimple right at the tip of the bullet for what they call controlled expansion. So it doesn't explode when it hits small game. It just delivers enough energy and tissue destruction to cause a quick dispatch of that small game animal, and yet not overly destroying the meat so that you'll have something left to eat. And that sounded very appealing to me, so I figured I'd give them a try, and I'll test them against some other brands of ammunition that's currently available. So let me show you what we have here today. Okay folks, here's the lineup. The first one here is the CCI Mini Mag 22 hollow point. That's a high velocity loading. Next we have CCI Velociraptor, which is actually a hypervelocity load. Now, they advertise velocities above 1,400 feet per second, shooting a 40 grain bullet. That's a pretty hot load there. Then we have the CCI small game bullet, which is not really a hollow point. It's a flat nose bullet, but it's considered controlled expansion, pretty much the same principle as the Dynapoint, but it's the only one in the lineup here that's not copper plated, okay? And I think the velocity on it's advertised 1,235 feet per second, I believe. Anyway, next we have the Winchester hollow point, and this is kind of a variation of their traditional design. It has a much more open hollow tip there for quick expansion. And then we have the Remington Golden Bullet 22 high velocity hollow point, which is also a bulk type ammunition. I bought this in a 500 round pack. And then finally we have this Winchester Dynapoint. You can see that small dimple there at the tip of the bullet, and it's, you know, a traditional average shaped bullet. It's a full 40 grains, and I think it's advertised at right at 1,200 feet per second. So let's get down here and do some testing with these different types of ammunition. I've got a GoPro camera here set up with a chronograph, and we'll see what kind of velocities that these different loadings can produce. I don't normally use high velocity ammunition like this for squirrel sized game because I've found that it's too destructive. Now, I've not used the small game bullet. I wouldn't say it would be too destructive. I think it would be pretty much ideal. But all these others are probably too much for squirrel sized game, because if you get a body hit, you're invariably probably going to cause too much meat damage. And that's the reason we do this, folks. We're out here to harvest game cleanly, you know, so that we can have some meat to enjoy. But anyway, without further ado, let's see what kind of performance that these different loadings can display at the 25-yard mark on wet newspaper. First, the CCI Mini Mag hollow point. Second, the Remington Golden Bullet hollow point. Next we have the CCI Velociter. Next we have the Winchester High Velocity hollow point. Next we have the CCI Small Game Bullet. And lastly we have the Winchester Dynapoint. Rifle's open, action's open, gun unloaded. Let's go check and see what we have. Okay, well, you can see where the bullet's impacted. That's the initial impact. That was the CCI Mini Mag. I believe that was the Velociter. And then we had the Remington hollow point. And then the Winchester hollow point. And then finally we had the Remington Small Game Bullet and the Winchester Dynapoint. So I'm going to start removing some of this material here. See if we can find any bullets. And we're almost halfway through here. Haven't found anything yet. There's the first one there. That's a Remington Golden Bullet. Very impressive. Nice mushrooming. Well, right here we have the CCI Mini Mag. Completely mushroomed, peeled all the way back. You see the base of the bullet there. Everything's still pretty much intact. It's just uniformly mushroomed all the way out. I think we're missing the Winchester here. Let me keep digging. Oh, there it is. That's what's left of that Winchester hollow point. The other part of it is completely fragmented. There's part of that Winchester. We'll put it right here. My backstop. And let's see. Okay, that's the Velociter. If I can get it out here. Uniformly mushroomed. I would say this would be a good round on larger game, such as, you know, groundhogs, maybe raccoons. There's the Dynapoint. Very little expansion. Both of those bullets made it all the way through and hit the back. So they didn't go through the box though. Oh, there it is. Fell out. Okay. And finally we have the CCI small game bullet. Hardly any expansion at all. Just a slight hollowing of that flat nose. Okay, the length of the test medium here measures to about 14.5 inches. That's layered wet newspaper. Most of the hollow point ammunition penetrated about 2/3, halfway to 2/3 through this test medium. And the ones that had no hollow point, or for example the small game bullet by CCI, penetrated all the way to the last layer, as did the Winchester Dynapoint. I found them here in the last 2 layers, and in some cases they hit right at the back of the cardboard box here. Okay folks, stopped. Here's the lineup. Here, the first one we shot was the CCI Mini Mag, and you can see here's the mushroom bullet, and that's pretty well ideal. That's at 25 yards. At extended ranges, you know, all these won't mushroom as much because the velocity is not as high. And those actually shot faster than their advertised velocity out of my rifle. CCI Mini Mag, I think, is advertised at 1260. That's pretty much a rough estimate, but all these shot faster than that speed. Next we have the CCI Velocitor. There's that bullet. It did not expand as much as the Mini Mag as I expected, because the hollow tip in it is not nearly as deep. As you can see, it's rather shallow. Thirdly, we have the Remington high velocity hollow point, which also mushroomed very nicely. That's pretty much like controlled expansion there. That's the definition of it right there. And it shot on the average in the mid 12s, you know, 1250 or so. Then we have the Winchester hollow point high velocity with the gaping hole in the front there, and I pretty much expected those to come apart fairly easily. And by this bullet here, I could see all of them that I shot into the test median using this ammunition. The front part of the cone completely separated from the rest of the bullet, so it just left the base, the bottom half of it, intact. And these 2 bullets, this is the CCI small game bullet with the flat nose. It did not expand at all, very, very little. And as I mentioned earlier, that penetrated all the way through all the layers of wet newspaper. Okay, but that's what the bullet was designed for. It was not designed to be explosive or to really expand much. It's just designed to deliver some shocking power to small game for quick dispatching of squirrel-sized game and rabbit-sized game without too much meat destruction. And then finally we have the Winchester Dynapoint here. You can see there's hardly any expansion, just a slight amount there at the tip, and it also penetrated nearly all the way through. These 2 performed nearly identical. Okay, so you know, if you're after small game for meat, these would probably be it, because you won't destroy much meat. But I would say they're probably also fairly accurate, and we'll check that here in just a moment with a 50-yard 5-shot group. Well folks, here I did some shooting at 50 yards with the various different makes of 22 bullet. First we've got the CCI Mini Mag hollow point. You see that's quite a spread right there. I expected that round to do better. Of course, I mean, it'll perform differently out of different rifles. Every kind of 22 out there has its preference. Okay, so there may be another test with a different rifle that will group all these in the middle using that same round. Anyway, that's the CCI Mini Mag hollow point, and they shot slightly higher, or quite a bit higher actually, than most of the others. Next we got the Remington Golden hollow point. That's pretty good grouping there at 50 yards using a 4-power scope. And then we have the CCI Velociter. By the way, I laid all the bullets that I got out of my test next to the round itself. These all also group kind of high. You know, I was holding here, and then they shot here at 50 yards. That's a pretty good group, actually. Pretty good. Then surprisingly here we got this Winchester high velocity hollow point. That's 4 shots right there, right under the bullseye. And then the last one went slightly to the left. But that's a pretty darn good group, especially out of bulk pack ammo like this. And then here we have the CCI small game bullet. That's 2 shots right there, right at the bullseye, and then 1 over here, and then 2 a little bit high. That's fair performance there, not too bad. And then the Winchester Dynapoint, and all of them grouped right there within the size of a nickel. You know, that's, here I got a nickel in my pocket. And you can see a nickel covers all those shots. So that's a headshot every time at a squirrel at 50 yards using this bulk pack ammo. Winchester 22 long rifle, advertised at $1,255. That's about right. It's actually a little bit lower according to my tests, but not much. You know, 20 to 30 feet per second lower. I found this old book that I featured in another video, the Complete 22, and here on one page here I've got it marked with an empty shell. This book goes back to 1980. Okay, there's the date, and here it shows a listing for Winchester Dynapoint rimfire cartridges. Same bullet right there. And that's really what I wanted to test because I bought this box of ammo. You know, so for $20 for a bulk pack of 22 ammo like that, that's pretty good performance right there. And that's just out of a little bolt action Remington. You know, nothing too fancy, nothing too special. They are fairly accurate. But this is an old rifle too, you know. And that kind of performance there at 50 yards, I'm sure if I cleaned that barrel and really got down there and concentrated, I could keep them all right in there. And for a squirrel size game, you know, you don't want over expansion of bullets. Given the velocity, these should anchor squirrels pretty easily, you know, especially with a headshot. Your results will vary depending on which rifle that you use. And you just have to try out different brands with the gun that you have. And you'll see that you'll have different results. This really surprised me here, you know, and I thought this would be the worst shooting ammunition. You know, if it hadn't been for that one shot, if that had been right in there with all the rest of them, that would be very impressive. I'm not sure if the wind kicked it over a little bit, or there might be a little bit of variation in the weight of the bullet or whatever. It could have even been me, but that is really impressive. When you got bullet holes touching each other like that at 50 yards, can't scoff at groups like that. Well folks, that pretty much does it for today's video. And remember, if you decide to use a 22 long rifle like I do, make sure you try different brands of ammunition to see which one that your gun likes. My particular rifle here, which is the one that I tested with today, is a Remington Model 511 Scoremaster. These little guns were made until 1967, so they're no longer available as new firearms. You can pick these up probably at a pawn shop or a gun show, something like that. But be sure and test your gun. You know, make sure you know which kind of ammunition that it prefers in terms of accuracy, because that should be your first concern, your first priority, is which ammunition your gun shoots the most accurate. And then you can go in and test, like I did today, with different types of medium. If you like to use the ballistic gel, then by all means use that. But what I was trying to illustrate is that newsprint is available to nearly everyone and everywhere. So just soak it in water, warm water like I did. Get about 15 inches of depth for you to shoot into. And check your gun at reasonable small game ranges. Here I've got it set up around 25 yards. So anywhere between 20 to 50 yards, maybe even a little further, depending on what kind of shooting you'll do. I just did this today at 25 yards to give you a rough idea of what to expect from the various brands of ammunition that I featured. The Winchester Dynapoint didn't have much expansion in this test medium, as I showed, but given the velocity of the round, if you make headshots on a squirrel or a rabbit, even bigger critters like groundhogs or woodchucks, as they're normally called, above the Mason-Dixon line, or if you're a raccoon hunter, you shoot raccoons, any of those small game, crows, like vermin type critters such as rats, that's more than enough power given the velocity. Anything over 1,200 feet a second is considered high velocity, and I would say anything over the 1,300 foot mark, 14, 15, maybe even 1,600, is considered hypervelocity, and that's certainly not necessary for any small game, because that becomes way too destructive. If you want to use stingers to shoot groundhogs with, then by all means you can use a high velocity round like the CCI Stinger, which is very popular. I'm sure most of you know what that is. The CCI Velociter also falls within that group, even though it has a much more controlled expansion, but it does shoot a heavier bullet, remember that. So that heavier bullet's going to hit harder further out. It's just the way it is. It's going to retain more hitting power at further distances, because you're shooting a full 40 grain bullet at right around 1,400 feet per second, and that's more than enough for game the size of a fox or a groundhog or raccoon or whatever. I mean, that's just plenty of energy in that department. So just remember, if you do test, whether you're doing for accuracy or for expansion as I did today, make sure you got a safe backstop and practice safe gun handling practices. Make sure the gun's always pointed in a safe direction. Keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot, and remember, keep the safety on until right when you get ready to shoot. So hopefully you got something out of this video, and now you kind of have a starting point depending on what kind of rifle that you have. As I mentioned, this one has a full 24-inch barrel, so you're going to get higher velocities with a 24-inch barrel, as is the case in this rifle, than you would say with the newer Marlin Model 60 or the Ruger 1022, which has a 19-inch barrel. You've got 5 inches less barrel, so you're going to get lower velocities. But in most cases, it's not going to be enough to really make a difference on squirrel-sized game or rabbit-sized game. It's not going to be an issue at all. In the beginning of the season, I used 22 short ammunition, as I showed you in my previous videos, and then later in the season I like to use 22 long rifle in standard velocity. But if I wanted to, I could use high velocity ammunition, and I have a pretty good idea now what this gun likes. I would probably choose those Winchester Dynapoints for squirrels, because I'm fairly confident I can make headshots out to and past 50 yards. So I can take that game cleanly, and that's what I want. That's what we're striving for. You want to cleanly harvest these animals so that you have plenty of meat left to enjoy later on. So anyway, let me just close out by saying, if you enjoy getting outdoors and you can go hunting or fishing, hiking, camping, whatever it is, I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. And remember, hit the like button, hit that bell icon, and subscribe. That way you'll know when more videos like this will be coming your way. So until next time, folks, this is the Cumberland Outdoorsman wishing you a good one. We'll see you next time. Take care, my friends.